Okay, so number one, you want to simplify the following expression, and it does say using the order of operations. So you have to use the order of operations. And then show one step at a time. All right, so according to the order of operation, remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So parentheses, grouping symbols first, and then exponents next, and then you do multiplication, division from left to right, and then you do addition, subtraction from left to right. So within this clustered grouping symbol, you have brackets and you have parentheses. Let's do the innermost first. So you can do this first. You're going to say 8 minus 3 is 5. So you can say 2 times 3 plus 5 times 5. Now you got to be a little bit careful. If you distributed, that is not an order of operations. Using distributive property is not using the order of operations. So, and I've mentioned that in class at one point, do not use the distributive property in using the order of operations. Okay, so you have to do the parentheses here first, and the only operation you see is subtraction. All right, now you have a bracket left as your grouping symbol. You have addition, multiplication. According to order of operation, I have to do multiplication before addition. So I get 2 times 3 plus 25. And again, do not do the distributive property. You have to use the order of operations. So according to the order of operations, I'm going to do brackets first. And inside the brackets, I have addition. So that's 2 times, and then 28. And then 2 times 28 is 56. All right. Same thing in part B. Now in part B, let's just look at the numerator for a moment. So in the numerator, we have this expression. And I have absolute value. Keep in mind, this is absolute value. And so let's deal with the absolute value first. So inside this absolute value is a subtraction problem. So I get 6 plus the absolute value of a negative 3. And we have to remember that the absolute value of a number measures the distance that the number is from 0 on the number line, and the distance is always positive. So this should have been a positive 3. So this becomes 6 plus 3, which is 9. So the numerator is 9. The denominator, you have 4 squared minus 5. According to order of operations, I'm going to do exponents before I do subtraction. So 4 squared, 16. So I get 16 minus 5, which is 11. So the answer is 9 divided by 11. Okay, number 2, this is where you're going to evaluate this algebraic expression given these values for the variables. So you're told x is 5, y is 3, and z is 2. So I get z squared, z is 2, so I got to say 2 squared minus y, and y is 3. That's the numerator. The denominator is x squared, so x is 5, so I'm going to square it, minus 2 times z, and z is 2. And so in the numerator, you have 2 squared minus 3. And so I'm going to do exponents before I do subtraction. So I get 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. So that's the numerator. The denominator, here's the expression. So again, you have exponent, you have subtraction, you have multiplication. So I'm going to do exponent first. 5 squared is 25. And then I have subtraction, multiplication left, so I'm going to do multiplication next. So that's 25 minus 4. And 25 minus 4 is 21. So the answer is 1 divided by 21. Okay, number 3, you got to remember that the phrase less than is where you're going to reverse the information. So this is 8. This is twice the number, and I do indicate that I want the number to be represented as x. And so twice the number means 2 times x. And remember, less than means subtraction. But you got to reverse because it says less than. So instead, it is not 8 minus 2x. That's incorrect. It's actually 2x minus 8. Okay, number 4, you want to circle the choice that best represents a property. All right, associative property of multiplication. All right, so remember the associative property is where you're grouping. where you're dealing with groups and you're dealing with multiplication. So obviously if you look at this right here, that's a distributive property. So we can take that one out. The associative property, remember the order of the numbers stay the same. So the order stays the same. So first of all, you have 4 times 7 equals 7 times 4. That's the commutative property of multiplication. So remember, the order in which you multiply does not matter. That's what that one is. This right here, if you look at this, that is, so if you look, the only thing that changed was the 6 times 4 becomes 4 times 6. So again, that is the commutative property of multiplication. That's what's being used here, because the only thing that changed was the order that's inside the parentheses. So the only thing left is this. So let's see why this one's true. So remember, the numbers stay in the same order, 752, 752. The only thing that you're doing is you're grouping different items. So instead of grouping the first two, we're going to group the last two, and so that's this one right here. Okay, commutative property, remember that's where you're changing the orders. The order in which you add does not matter. So 6y plus 5 means the same thing as 5 plus 6y. Okay, so number 6, you want to use distributive property, and it does say to simplify. So if I use distributive property, I get negative 4 times 3x is negative 12x. A negative 4 times a negative 2 is a positive 8, and then subtract 5. The only thing you're multiplying negative 4 by is what's inside the parentheses. Then combine like terms, I can combine these constants. I get negative 12x plus 3. So negative 12x plus 3. Okay, so number 7, you want to use a distributive property to rewrite each as a sum, to write each sum as a product. All right, so this sum right here you want to write as a product. So if you look at these two terms, they have both terms have 4 in common. So what that means, you can write this as 4 times x plus y. And so notice I wrote the sum as a product, 4 times x plus y. And if you look at it, I am using distributive property. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times y is 4y. Okay, here you're dealing with the additive inverse. So remember, the additive inverse means this. So if two numbers are additive inverses, is if you add them, you get 0. So basically, to find the additive inverse, you just change the sign of the number. So the additive inverse of the negative 3/5 is 3/5, because when you add them up, negative 3/5 plus 3/5, you get 0. Number 9, which property is illustrated by the following statement? So notice that the 2x, 5, 3y, 2x, 5, 3y, so the order's in this, it's in the same order, the terms. The only difference is that the groups are changed. So this would be the associative property of addition. So that's B. Number 10, how many terms does this expression have? Well, there's this one, there's this one, there's this one, there's this one, and there's this one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 terms. Right here, there are 5 terms. In number 11, you want to state the terms. So you have 5x to the 4th. You have a negative 2x to the 5th. Oops. You have a negative x cubed. And you have 6, positive 6. Here you want to indicate the coefficient. So the coefficient of this term is the number you're multiplying the variable by. So x squared is being multiplied by negative 3. Here, remember that right here is understood to be the same thing as negative 1 times xy. So my coefficient is negative 1. Number 13, are the following two terms like terms? The answer is no, because in order to have like terms, your variables have to, the corresponding variables have to be raised to the same power. So this exponent is 2 and this exponent is 1. So they're not like terms. Okay, simplify. You can combine like terms. So I have a negative 5x and a positive 2x. So a negative 5 and 2 is a negative 3. So this becomes a negative 3x, and then your constants, a negative 5 plus a negative 1 is a negative 6. So that becomes negative 3x minus 6. Here you want to simplify using distributive property. So you got to remember if there's no number out here, that's just going to be 1. In this case, it will be negative 1. And so you can distribute, multiply everything in here by that negative 1. So negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. Negative 1 times a negative 2y is a positive 2y. A negative 1 times 1 is a negative 1. Now let me go back and mention a couple of things. See, these are expressions. They're not equations, so there's no reason you should not be solving for the variable x. Those are not equations. Those are expressions. Remember, expressions do not have an equal sign in it. Just like this was an expression. This is an expression. There's no equal sign. All right, now, when doing this one, mistake people make is they want to say 2 plus 3 is 5 and then distribute a 5. You can't do that. You have to remember the order of operations. So this is addition, this is multiplication. So you have to multiply first. You have to use the distributive property first. All right, so I get 2 plus, and then 3 times 2x is 6x, and then 3 times a negative 1 is a negative 3. And then combine like terms, I get 6x, and then 2 at a negative 3 is a negative 1. Or if you want to, you can write as negative 1 plus 6x, does not matter. Again, here, this is an expression, not an equation. So don't solve for the variable x. It's not an equation. It's just an expression. So to simplify this expression, the first thing you're going to do is the distributive property. And so when I use the distributive property in the first parentheses, I get 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times a positive 2 is a negative 6. Combine like terms, 6x minus 3x is 3x, and then a negative 2 and a negative 6 is a negative 8. Number 18. Okay, so you will write the following. We'll write the following as an algebraic expression and simplify if possible. Let x represent the unknown number. So 6 times the sum of a number and 4. So 6 times, and then you want to add these two things together. So the expression becomes 6 times x plus 4. So 6 times the sum of a number and 4. All right, did say simplify, so you're going to use a distributive property. So it becomes 6x plus 24. Okay, now 19, you want to solve the following linear equation. Show the step I want to see as presented in class. So that's just using the addition property of equality. Is what I wanted you to show here. So in other words, to get the variable x by itself, right now I'm subtracting 4. The opposite is to add 4. So by the addition property of equality, if I add 4 to the left, I got to add 4 to the right, and then I combine like terms. So negative 4 and 4 is 0, so I get x to be a negative 1. So that's your solution. So negative 1 will make the original equation a true statement. Here I'm going to use the multiplication property of equality. Because if you notice, the left-hand side says negative 5 times x. So to get x by itself, since I'm multiplying by negative 5, the opposite is to divide by negative 5. And negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. 1 times x is x. 30 divided by negative 5 is a negative 6. Okay, 21. So to solve this equation, I'm going to first of all use a distributive property. So I get negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And negative 4 times a negative 2 is a positive 8. Equals 3 minus 4x. Alright, so then the next step would be to combine like terms if you can, but these two sides of the equation, there are no like terms. So now let's bring the variables to one side, constant to the other. So I'm going to bring the variables to the right, so I'm going to bring the variables to the left. So I'm going to add 5x to both sides. Negative 4x plus 5x is x, so I get x plus 8 equal. Yes. And so over here, when I combine like terms, I get 0. Negative 5x plus 5x is 0. And you're left with 3. And then the only thing you got to do is subtract 8 from both sides. So again, using the addition property of equality, addition property of equality, addition property of equality. Negative 8 and 8 0, so I get x to be a negative 5. Over here, we're going to combine like terms first on each side. So here I get a negative 3x and a positive 5x is 2x. I get 2x minus 7 equal. And then my constants is 3 and a negative 8, so that's a negative 5, so this becomes x minus 5. And then just like we did in the previous problem, we're going to subtract x from both sides and bring all the variables to one side, constants to the other. 2x minus x is x minus 7 equal x minus x is 0, and then negative 5. And then add 7 to both sides. Combine like terms, I get x to be 2. Number 23. The best thing to do number 23 is to first of all add 4 to both sides. When I add 4 to both sides and combine like terms, I get 2/3 x is equal to 6. And then the way we did this in class when we talked about that section is we used the multiplication property of equality. So right now I'm multiplying by 2/3, multiplying x by 2/3. The opposite is to divide by 2/3. And so 2/3 divided by 2/3 is 1. 1 times x is x, and then I just got to figure out what 6 divided by 2/3 is. Well, remember, 6 divided by 2/3 means 6 divided by 1 times the reciprocal of 2/3. So that's times 3/2. And then reduce. 2 into 2 is 1. 2 into 6 is 3. So I get 3 times 3 is 9. So I get x to be 9. So that's your solution there. And then finally here, I use the distributive property twice on this side. And so 4 times x is 4x. 4 times a negative 3 is a negative 12. Negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. Negative 2 times positive 1 is a negative 2. And that's equal to 5x plus 2. Combine like terms. 4x minus 6x is a negative 2x. A negative 12 and a negative 2 is a negative 14. And that equals to 5x plus 2. I'm going to go ahead and bring the variables to the left, so I'm going to subtract 5x on both sides. And when I combine like terms, a negative 2x and a negative 5x is a negative 7x minus 14 equal. These are opposite, so when you add them up you get 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2. Adding 14 to both sides now, because right now I'm subtracting 14, the opposite is add 14. That's the only way I can get this to be a 0 when I combine them. I get negative 7x equal 16. And then using the multiplication property of equality, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 7. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1. 1 times x is x. And my solution is negative 16/7, or negative 2 and 2/7. Okay? Alright, so that's going to take care of this test. If you still have any questions, then you can see me before class. If you have any questions on this.